welcome back, everybody. And if you can take your seat, we're going to get started with our next panel. Very excited about this particular panel. Nathan?
This panel is on advanced manufacturing in the Rio Grande Valley. And our panelists are, we have Jerry Briones, Chief Operations Officer for Greater Brownsville Incentives Corporation. We have Eduardo Cerda with Future SQC. We have Rolando Gonzalez with the Gobard Group and the Border Manufacturers Association. And we have Dr. Malky with UTRGV's Institute for Advanced Manufacturing. First question, and this is for anyone to start off with. Additive manufacturing is often described as a disruptive technology. In your view, what is the single best way that 3D printing and AI or data is transforming traditional manufacturing?
I said everything that came out with AI, I would respond. Okay, additive manufacturing, beside my colleague said something different that I'm really respectful of their opinion because they're living in the manufacturing world every day. I'm more related in the ecosystem of software, so we plug in all software data from the manufacturing side. So all these additive manufacturing is very new, and it's still, we don't understand how really can leverage of the knowledge from that. But when you put some AI or some data, it can really help you on understand and make it easier the way to really lock up into the real world. Why? For example, I'm going to give you an example for that. Imagine that you need a special design for a special part. The best way to make that design right now is through the AI. So if you can put some AI or data in the AI, and then you put it in all they come out and make all those examples over the manufacturing world, in the additive manufacturing, that can be really helpful for everybody and the company. So it's any of those technologies can be really helpful for the full understanding on the company, but when you put it together, it can be really make up really quicker things. Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I hope everybody hear me, but it's my point of view. Thank you. Anybody else?
Well, good morning. My name is Rolando Gonzalez. I am part of the Gobard Group and Border Manufacturers. I'm a traditional manufacturer. We just celebrated 40 years manufacturing in Matamoros. Mainly, we are metal stampers and metal mechanics. And the question about if additive manufacturing is disruptive, of course it's disruptive. It has in theory, it will be able to close supply chains to where you will be able to manufacture everything in-house. But in my line of manufacturing right now, it's only viable for prototypes. The size of our volume that we produce, it's very difficult with the existing technologies to do our production because the top machines are so expensive and the materials are so expensive. But we think, and correct me if I'm wrong, maybe in the 10 to 15 years, it should catch up, and we may be able to use it and bring back a lot of manufacturing home.
I'll reiterate what Rolando and Mr. Cerda have said. So additive manufacturing, it's still at its early stage, but it's moving really fast. It's not restricted to just making prototypes, although it's ideal for making prototype really quickly, but you can also use it for producing small batch parts, for specialized parts. It's cost effective. But if you are producing large volumes, it's not there yet. It is a disruptive technology because it will eventually replace the way we do things, because we can do things a lot quicker and we can do it a lot more efficiently. Again, today, it's efficient to do small batches than to do large volumes. But over time, you know, you had a timeline of 10 to 15 years. I think it may be less than that because it's moving really fast, especially when you couple it with AI and large data analysis and so on. You can do a lot, you know, that was not possible, you know, just a few years ago. Okay.
And I guess just to add, and good morning, my name is Jerry Briones. I'm with the Greater Brownsville Incentives Corporation. So in our line of work, our job is to produce primary jobs for the city of Brownsville. So in that case, my travels take me to trade shows where they have the latest, you know, CNC machines. I mean, not CNC machines, but 3D printers, 4D printers. And one of the things that, like you just said, it does small parts quickly. The larger parts, you know, takes a lot more time. But what really gets me is that it's being used for everything and anything just about. You know, you can see homes that are being built using 3D printing. You know, the machine is set up in the driveway and they're doing panels, they're doing all kinds of different things. So yes, it is disruptive because, you know, what could be done before is being done now. But also, I'm not sure if it's really that disruptive also because it's not at the point where it can be used for mass production of homes or equipment or all those things. I remember 5, 6 years ago, there was I was working in the city of Pflugerville, and we recruited our first 3D printing machine. It was a German company that was doing all their experimenting and all their research at Texas A&M. And we were working with them the whole time. In fact, I think we incentivized them at one time. This was with the Pflugerville EDC. And we eventually brought him in, and it was amazing because when COVID hit, the U.S. military, and I'm talking Air Force, Army, and everybody, went to them, and these guys started cranking out plastic shields, gloves. I mean, just anything you could think of as far as PPE equipment was being used. And I mean, they did a great job. They won contracts all over the place. So much so that now there's about 3 or 4 3D printing and 4D printing, I think, as well in the Pflugerville area. So one of the things, just looking at what else we can bring to the city is what is available in those technologies that, yes, we can shorten the supply chain, we can do all these things, but at the same time, create those jobs that are next gen, right? Because at the end of the day, we want to keep our kids in Brownsville. We want to make sure that we're giving them the right education and we're building the right opportunities. And I think additive manufacturing is one of those key ways.
Jerry, you touched on a really good point there. Right now, the rhetoric kind of coming out of DC is to try to bring back all these manufacturing jobs from China. And reality is it's probably not going to happen given automation. This question, we can start again with Rolando. Kind of where do you see additive manufacturing jobs, both in the Valley, but on both sides of the border in our like binational complex here?
Well, if I'm going to talk more about Matamoros and Brownsville than McAllen and Reynosa because I'm not as familiar as I am with Brownsville and Matamoros, but I can tell you 40 years experience in Matamoros. If you look at the cluster that's developed in Matamoros, it's the interior of the car. So we do everything from airbags, the chassis, you know, the steering wheels, the airbags, leather seats. A lot of those components are made using existing traditional manufacturing methods. The transition right now from what we're currently doing into additive manufacturing is going to be interesting. Luckily, because of the transition of electrical vehicles, Matamoros is safe. A lot of the jobs that we have are not going to disappear because we're going to, you know, electric cars still need steering wheels. They still need airbags. They still need the leather seats. So Matamoros is safe. When you add the component of additive manufacturing, I see, for example, us, we're already starting to experiment with metal 3D printing for the airbag components. one of the issues that you have is once you make it, it's not as strong so far. So when we stamp a metal, you know, it's a metal that we already know the dimensions and we know everything about it. And if you do it 3D printing, sometimes the strength isn't there, so you have to give it extra processes like heat treatment. So I think it's going to happen sooner or later. The technology keeps growing exponentially. And I'm not familiar with every single type of additive manufacturing, but I'm excited for some of the technologies that I've seen, and I think it's just a matter of time for that to happen.
On that note, this question's more geared toward Dr. Malky. How can the RGV uniquely position itself as a national leader in this field?
Well, the key is to embrace, AI and automation. As you said earlier, a lot of the manufacturing that we are trying to reshore and bring back is not going to come back in the same way it left. It's not going to be labor intensive anymore because the reason it left in the first place is because of labor costs and competitiveness, in China and other countries where it went to. To bring it back, we have to bring it in a way that we have to be competitive. And there have been countries, and I have one country in mind, Sweden, that has been able to compete with China in manufacturing. The way they did it is through robotics, AI, and automation. Mostly automation at the beginning, and now they're incorporating AI. And they can compete and sometimes beat China, cost. But it's not labor intensive. So there will be a new set of skills that will be in demand, for the new manufacturing. Mostly programmers, PLC, programmers for, the most part, but you also need people that can analyze large data and work on robotics, automation, and so on. So it's not going to be, the typical and skilled labor that we had back in the 50s and 60s in your traditional factories. It's going to be very skilled labor, but it's not going to be in the volume that, we tend to think of when we think about manufacturing, where you have, 200, 300, 500 people working on the floor. So for Sweden, some of the companies that we have worked with, you go to a place that used to have 200 employees, there is one person running the whole floor out of monitor and can control the whole process. So I think the type of skills that will be needed for the RGV to compete is to embrace automation, AI, and to embrace it early.
I would like to add something what Dr. Michael said is it's like the art, the state of the art, meaning that robotics and everything, and it is true. It's what it's needed to be done. But one of the things that it can happen meanwhile, it's all manufacturing companies can work together with IoT, with some like fix-ups, let's say that way, so we can go like maybe not at the state of the art, but we can compete like just a little bit to gain something out of the market that is coming back, and then to have enough money to make all this big renovation. But there's a gap that it can be filled through software to IoT to sensors that it can help. It's best if you can have enough investment to make all these robotic things. That could be like the best way to make it. But there's still a gap in time, like 5 years, maybe 7 years, that we can like make this change of technology from the one that we're using, like from the last 20, 30 years, and that try to becoming a little bit more efficient, and then to make the switch to the real things that we need for the future.
Good segue for that. I'd also like to point out that, Eduardo, you were one of the first recipients of the Launch BTX grant from Greater Brownsville Incentives Corporation. So this is a question really for both of you all. What further partnerships could be built to further expand on additive manufacturing, AI, and data here in the Rio Grande Valley? whether it be like public-private partnerships or perhaps university or EDC partnerships?
So I think from our perspective on the economic development side, we're always open to partnerships, to new ideas, to new ways of collaborating with, not only with industry, but also with the educational components that come along with it. I've been with GBIC for the last 2.5 years. I haven't seen as many projects come through our doors that we can say this is something we want to invest our money in, because at the end of the day, we are investing and we are, vested with taxpayers. So we have to be careful how we do that, but at the end of the day, if it is a project that we feel is a good project, and I take Eduardo's project as an example, we are open to investing in startups. We are open to maybe 3-year, 5-year stage companies that they may have a good idea and that need that extra push. That is what we are designed to do. We are designed to invest and to bring manufacturing and industrial based companies to Brownsville, and we are working very hard at that. I think one of the things that we look at, and we were talking about AI, is I've read I don't know how many different articles about the disruption of AI and all these, but I've also read some articles in where yes, this job is going to be displaced, but there's going to be a replacement, maybe not in the same type of job that's being replaced, but there are going to be some additional jobs that come along with it. And I think for us, and I think also for the educational side of it, is what are those jobs? How do we get the educational know-how to start producing those fields? And then kind of, be aware of, we don't need to be afraid of AI. And I hear this, right? I've been to several DC functions where, we've had congressmen there and we've had all kinds of individuals there that they all say the same thing. Yes, jobs are going to be lost. No question about it. But there's also jobs that are going to be created. There's also jobs that are going to come with it. And you're going to need a whole new set of skills, and how do we get in front of those skills?
That's a good point. And even we were talking before this conversation, Jerry and I, we were thinking and talking about the project that you have with the University of Nebraska, what you're related to, and this project that the university, the UTRGV, has is very important for the 3D printing with metals, with very specific components. So talking about partnering, one of the things that I think we should know, and when I say we, it's like a region, it's kind of understanding the potential that everybody has. For example, what it's building. By the way, we need to invite. You need to invite about the 5th of May of your, renew. How do you say that? Renauration? Okay.
Ribbon cutting.
Ribbon cutting. But my point is here. They have a special equipment, very special equipment, that a lot of people needs to know. And if we as a cluster, I don't know how many of you were yesterday in the Mr. Fox presentation, and one of the things that we have done very good in specific with the area that I come from is Monterey, the clusters. And we can start putting a cluster specific to understand how this additive manufacturing can help. And I think for the investment that UTRGV has, the UTRGV can be like the front of the arrow and putting together all the ideas and really make a powerful UTRGV region for the additive manufacturing. That's my 2 cents.
And I'll add half a cent to that one. And that is that we were talking about this, and one of the things that we talked about is, is there an opportunity perhaps to put together a manufacturing contract, a contract labor manufacturing facility if you have, and I don't know what kind of equipment you have, obviously, but that may be a first step opportunity to bring in some additional companies that may be looking to do additive manufacturing. How do we have what we have now, and how do we use it to attract new industries or startup industries that you want to create a widget, and maybe you don't have the capacity to create that widget, but maybe the university does. So how do we work together to put that partnership together?
If I may, super fast, you're talking about partnerships. I think the most important one, I'm surprised it hasn't come up yet, is you need a partnership with Index Matamoros. Something that I really admire about McAllen area is if you look, my father's really good friends with Keith Patridge for many years. If you don't know who that is, he's one of the people that really developed the area in McAllen. You know, they looked at what do we have? We have the manufacturing in Reynosa, we have the gas Pemex plant in Reynosa. How do we help them be better? You know, the reason why the maquila industry grew so much is because you brought cheap labor and then you used world-class infrastructure from the US to move your products. And my father's been the president of Index at the national level. He's been at the local level. And the biggest issue is Brownsville doesn't have any conversations with us. We generate $8 billion worth of goods, and I'm the only local one. Everyone else is a big corporation outside, and there's no projects where we work together. We've signed a ton of MOUs, but take a picture and that's it. So combining that with, I don't know if you're aware with all the projects that they're doing at UT RGV, I am absolutely amazed every time I go. Just what they're doing with the high schools, what they're doing with the students. You can become certified in advanced manufacturing at UT RGV. They have programs for that. I mean, those two things would really, really make Brownsville grow and the RGV grow, because anything that happens in Brownsville or in Matamoros affects McAllen and Reynosa and vice versa. So it's not a matter of looking at each other as competitors, it's about doing things.
Dr. Melky, can you highlight some of those exciting projects that Rolando had mentioned?
Rolando is putting me on the spot.
Those that don't require an NDA.
Yes. We have several projects. We have several grants with Department of Defense, Department of Energy, and we have acquired some new toys. We look at them as toys, very advanced tools from electronic 3D printing, so we can print circuit boards and have a machine that will place the microchips and sinter it. So we can do just about anything, in electronics. We also have metal 3D printing. We have different processes, from laser bed fusion to cold spray, which is shooting small, metal particles at supersonic or hypersonic speed, where when they collide, they fuse. So you don't need laser or anything to fuse it. And it's very stable, very reliable. And actually the Navy and several, Department of Defense agencies are looking at that technology. And we just got the mold, from Oak Ridge National Lab, which is one of our major partners for 3D printing wind blades for the wind energy sector. But we can adapt it to 3D print just about anything with polymers, and we're looking at 3D printing drones for the military as well. So there are a lot of projects. I mean, I can sit here and just brag about what we have, but we have a lot of exciting stuff. But
You should brag about with what you do with the students in high school.
Yeah, we have programs.
That's-
So it's one of the grants that we got. It's for a project that's called America Additive Foundry, is to bring back metal casting and foundry, but not in the traditional way, but using robotics and using advanced technologies that allows us to be competitive. And that grant has three components. One is to develop the technologies. So we're working on the sciences, the processes, developing new metal recipes, metal that doesn't exist. We can combine different metals, for different applications. But we also have a workforce development part within that, because we need to prepare the workforce to handle and be able, to work with that new technology. And the third component of that project is to incubate and spin off businesses based on that technology. So, spin off and create organic businesses that are, from here, from the valley, whether it's Brownsville or McAllen, as long as it's home-based. Yeah. So.
And I cannot stress how impressive that program is. I have to congratulate you again, and Mr. Garza here, Mr. Ron Garza, for all the support in that. That is really gonna change the valley, in my opinion.
But if I may just say one thing about partnership. So I don't know if we are foolish or we are smart, but I think we are smart about building a consortium and expanding our network, because we're working with some cutting edge, and leading experts within different areas from around the country, but also internationally. We're working with Germans and Swedes and Norwegians and Mexico as well. And Mexico is critical. We understand that, you cannot build something by yourself, not in this time, because technology is so highly specialized that you need to bring, different partners with different expertise to be able, to achieve great things. And we understand that very well. So we're not trying to build everything on our own. We're bringing, experts and partners, and actually many of you, and all of you are welcome, on the 5th of May, to attend our ribbon cutting. You'll get to see some of the stuff that we're discussing here. But, and I think it's one of the Valley's best kept secret. It's not going to be a secret after May 5th, but we do have a lot of capabilities there that allows us to do very complex things. One thing that we talked about, the first question that you asked is about, the 3D printing and the additive manufacturing. One thing that it allows you to do is to make very complex parts with very complex geometry that is almost impossible to do with subtractive processes, the old technologies, especially when you're talking about aerospace and so on, where you need to make a part that has some geometry within the part that you cannot do with the traditional machining. So 3D printing allows you to do that. The other thing is it allows you also to work with extremely hard metal that are extremely hard to machine. So it will take you months to machine a part when you can do it in a matter of days, to have a complete made parts, with additive manufacturing.
We would love to be a part of that consortium, and we definitely would like a May 5th invite, so I'll make sure that we will be there. I can't say enough good things about him. And you're right, we have done a poor job of not keeping up with Index. I accept your challenge, and we will be stronger. I can tell you work with Codem, but Index does bring a lot of good to the table, and more than anything, I think your dad brings some serious knowledge as well.
Well, Maquilas is 70% of the actual jobs in Matamoros.
Right.
So that's just direct jobs.
No, I know it very well.
So
but unfortunately, we probably have dropped the ball on building a stronger relationship. But I take the challenge.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
On that same note, BCIC in partnership with GBIG, we're actually going to be developing our prototyping space, and I know Dr. Malku, we've been discussing bringing some of the things that you just talked about here into Brownsville, so we're really excited about that. Last question before we open it up to the audience, and we can start with you, Eduardo. And this is more of a personal opinion along the panelists here and what we can do. We have a race going on right now, America and China, DeepSeek, OpenAI. Who's winning the race, why, and what can we do to position ourselves here in the Valley to be ready for that?
I don't want to answer that question. We're behind. We are behind. I took the opportunity, I had the opportunity to be in China back in 2018. And in China for different reasons. And one of the reasons is the use of your personal information, because for the government, right? it's different. I don't want to say it's good or it's bad. But for that reason, they can have more experimental technologies. So back in 2018, they had a lot of what we are having right now in this as a technologies, talking about self-driving cars and a lot of the things we'd already lost putting together by the government. So in Beijing, they have already in the center, in the downtown of Beijing, they have a lot of cameras so they can see whatever is around, who's there, the measurements of, as a citizen, you're rated, and who's there and who's not there at midnight. So they're really ahead of us. So we need to step. And I think as a region, we have everything to make this fight back. We are behind, in my point of view, but we have everything, but we need to get together. And I think this conversation, this panel is more than I thought it was to become. And but we need to understand consciously where we're at and where we want to go. But we have everything, but we're behind already.
Anybody else brave enough to give their opinion before we move on?
Well,
mean-
just real, I'm sorry.
Yeah, if you want to talk from a manufacturing standpoint, China's like 20 years ahead of us. The technology, the capacity of the things that they can do. Even though Mexico is more, if Mexico had the same population as China, we would be a lot more productive because per capita, Mexico is more productive than China, but their sheer volume alone is what destroys us. You know, they're 1.3 billion people. It's very hard to compete with that. But I think that in order to catch up, like you mentioned before, AI, automation, additive manufacturing is going to be key for us to be competitive again.
Hello. Adding of what Rolando is saying, he's saying about really in the manufacturing. I was saying that we need to combine some technologies, in this case AI and manufacturing, and China is really ahead of us. But in the case of software and AI, India is really ahead of us too, because for the capacity. So they have, for example, in our case, we need, for example, a software development person or whatever specific knowledge people we need to have to hire. We delay like a week, maybe 2 weeks, and find 1, 2, or 3. If you go and ask to India, you can have like a 3,000 in 30 seconds. So the capacity is different. So we need to go like understanding what is happening in China and understanding what is happening in India and putting together the effort.
Well, China and India are ahead of us in certain areas, but they did not get there, by accident. It was strategic planning and so on that they did. So the most important part, and thing that allowed China and India, to get where they are is human capital, in specific areas, is STEM fields, science, technology, engineering, mathematics. We used to lead in that area. We don't lead anymore, and we are trying to get back to that area because science, technology, engineering, and mathematics are what create wealth. All the others, industries, although important, they are not self-sustaining without a very strong industrial base. So I understand, and maybe I'm going to offend some people, but I'll go ahead and say it. One of the largest employer or industry in the valley is the school districts. But how do we fund school, the education? It's through property taxes. So somebody has to pay those taxes to be able to have quality education. That somebody has to be manufacturing. It has to be industries because they are the ones generating value. So I don't want to have, a lecture on economics, but I'll give you a very short, maybe explanation. So when you manufacture something, most of the stuff that you manufacture is not going to be sold and consumed locally. It will be exported. So you export the value that you have produced and bring back cash that allows activity in that economy. It allows for thriving entertainment industry, real estate, schools, and so on. If you bring other industries, for example, and I don't want to pick on retail, because most from inside out, so it doesn't stay to circulate in the economy. Only manufacturing does that, because it brings money in and takes products out. Other areas, they take money out, and that's what you're trying to avoid. So you're bleeding the region in that sense. We cannot just say, no, we're not going to do retail, because we still need retail. But we should not really focus on retail. We need to focus on manufacturing and industries, whether it's advanced or the traditional manufacturing, because that's what creates wealth in a community. So you look at Chicago, you look at LA, there's very strong manufacturing bases there. And that's the reason why they are considered successful, big, thriving communities, is because there is wealth being generated there.
So Nathan, can I use that as a plug for what we're doing at GBIC?
Please do.
So one of the things that we're doing at GBIC is, and we will have a groundbreaking in a couple of weeks, is we are developing an industrial park. It's 730 acres. Of that, we've got phase one coming in, which is 86 acres. Out of those 86 acres at this moment, we probably have LOIs on 3/4 of that land already, as well as other individuals that are looking at taking down the rest of those. And we are, internally, we're already talking of what's next, which is phase two. And I hope I don't get fired for this, but it is something important that I think this, what we're talking about is important, because we know what we need to bring: industry, manufacturing, industrial. We had a smaller industrial park, which is the North Brownsville Industrial Park. We've got over 300,000 square feet of manufacturing space going up in that park. It's already been sold out. So it is something that we do take very seriously. I know we've missed some steps here and there, and I take that. But we also know that we have to look beyond what's in front of us. We have to look what's beyond us. And that is what I think myself and all our teammates and our executive director is, what is ahead and how do we get there? And what do we create in order to get that? And it goes back to the infrastructure. We need water. We need, I'm not saying we need it. I'm just saying these are the things that you need in order to grow your base. Infrastructure, utilities, water, capacity, workforce. So we know what we need to do, and we're working to get there.
All right, we're going to open it up to Q&A. We have one question here from the audience.
Hello, everyone. So we have been doing injection molding, plastic injection molding in Monterrey for a long time for fiber optics products. And we have been looking for additive manufacturing to substitute some splice trays, some components that are, let's say, low volume, right? But I agree with Rolando. It seems more adequate from what we have found. It seems more adequate for prototyping, not really that much for mass manufacturing, as it may be in other parts of the world. So I want to touch back to the comment where you guys were discussing about maybe through a cluster or some co-investment, doing something to, probably with the university, to move ahead of what we can find around here and make some noise with it. In my humble point of view, that will attract a lot of attention from these huge manufacturing projects in Monterrey, Ramos Arizpe, in the Reynosa, Matamoros. If you could do something to make noise and draw attention, because additive manufacturing is becoming a buzzword in the manufacturing industry, right? So I want to see if you could touch back again on that. What is your point of view on doing something together to like sort of be the first ones. Because right now in Mexico, at least, if you look for something like this, you find some companies in Chihuahua, some companies in Mexico City doing great stuff, but it seems like very specific efforts, not something like industry-wide or something that could attract investment just for prototyping and stuff like that. So if you could touch back on that topic of joining efforts to draw attention, I appreciate it.
Our center, our institute, is not a traditional institute that doing just fundamental research. We're doing applied research, but we're also connected and connecting with industry. So we do research for industries, and we are already partnering with several, industries and companies and so on, and we are more than willing and open, to partner with other industries and companies, whether helping them with figuring out efficient processes, or developing prototypes, or new technologies, or new products, or new material, to help solve some of their problems. We are open for business, so to speak. You are more than welcome, to visit our center and talk with Dr. Lee, who heads the institute, and and see where we can help you, where we can collaborate. Yeah, so we are open, and this is an invitation, open invitation to everybody that's interested in exploring what we can do to help you. So we are not really focused on fundamental research, which we do some of it, but we focus more on applied research, trying to find solutions for real-world problems.
Eduardo, I recommend you go.
May 5th.
Good. Okay. I'm in the logistics field. Some of you know me, and we've been at it for 30 plus years, and we know that manufacturing is coming back. Matamoros, Brownsville. We believe we are in a very interesting ecocenter. Foreign trade zone, the Port of Brownsville, free trade zones in Matamoros. But I want to quote Yossi Sheffi. Okay, you can look it up. Logistics clusters. Logistics clusters. Very important to bring the logistics. I mean, we need to bring manufacturing, but we also need to bring logistics. Brownsville used to be the biggest logistics air freighter in the valley, the 1980s. 3 air freighters, Burlington Express, Emery Worldwide, Airborne, obviously defunct companies, but what I'm getting at is we had 3 air freighters in Brownsville. Harlingen, I don't even remember if they had FedEx. But what I'm getting at is that we lost that, okay? We lost it because of maybe communication. I invite you to communicate with Index Matamoros. Index Matamoros, I'm really sure, is ready to talk to Brownsville. But we need to also involve the community. Logistics, according to this author, Yossi Sheffi, bring logistics clusters first and manufacturing follows. You can look them up. I'm not quoting myself. Thank you.
I beg to differ. You need to have something to ship before you start looking at shipping it. If you bring logistics by itself, where are you shipping? So you have to have something that's being manufactured, to build that logistics sector. I think manufacturing should precede logistics. Logistics is just a natural extension of manufacturing. If you manufacture, logistics will come. It's almost like I keep going back to retail. Retail follows traffic. So if there is traffic, foot traffic, and if there is customer base, retail will come. Logistics is a little bit like that. If you have a manufacturing base, the logistics will come, to carry, that output that's being produced. So I don't think I agree with the author of that article that says logistics first and then bring manufacturing. Logistics cannot sustain itself without customer base, and the customer base is the manufacturers.
I agree 100%.
All right, well.
I think I concurred earlier.
Okay. All right, that's our panel for today. Thank you all. Quick round of applause for our panelists. Please stay tuned. We're about to get some lunch by our sponsor, Rio Motors, and then Rosie and Alejandra will be taking the stage for Insights Unplugged session. Thank you.
Nathan.